The idea of just saying to myself, okay, I'm going to go 19 years and never have a drink again. That's just enough to send you off on a binge, isn't it? But you can do easy things, and you can get anywhere from here. You ever hear the line, a journey of 1,000 miles, what, begins with one step? That's right out of the Tao Te Ching. That was Lao Tzu. It's so simple. So when you think about balance in your life, think like this about being in balance. You have a dream, and your dream is to live a life that goes a certain way, that looks a certain way, that feels a certain way. You have a dream that you would like to be able to attract prosperity into your life, that you would like to live a prosperous life. My favorite example, I did it on the PBS show, of the lady sitting next to me from San Francisco who was flying back from Maui after having just done a wedding. And I said to her, what do you do? And she said, I'm a photographer. And I said, oh, how's it going? And she said, well, she said, I'm never going to get rich at it. Now, this is just a thought. Is it true? I don't know if it's true. How can that be? How can you know if that's true, that you're never going to get rich? You don't know. So I said to her, well, would you like to get rich? This was what I always ask when people ask. Well, she said, well, of course. She said, who wouldn't want to be rich? Everybody wants to be able to buy the things they want. We all want that. I said, so let me see if I understand. You would like to get rich. That's your dream. But what you offer up to that dream is that it'll never happen. That's out of balance. That's the kind of balance I'm speaking about. The kind of balance that you begin to realize that there's a misalignment, if you will, between what it is that you are thinking and what it is that you offer up in the way of habits to make those dreams a reality. I call it principles for creating habits to match your desire. Listen to this quote. It's from Ralph Waldo Emerson. He said, want, like what you want, is a growing giant whom the coat of have was never large enough to cover. Want is a growing giant whom the coat of have was never large enough to cover. That is, what you want and what you have are completely and totally out of balance. And Lao Tzu says this to you through me. When you put your attention on what you intend to create and you stay aligned with the way, with the source from which you came, it will show up. It has to. It has to. So that all of the deficiencies, all of the things that you want but are not able to manifest, have not manifested yet into your life, all of it is not because the universe isn't working with you. It will. It's because you are not a vibrational match, an energetic match to what it is that you would like to create. And all today is about is learning to change the way you look at your life and understanding that the life that you're living will change just by your changing your opinion about it. It's so beautifully freeing to not be concerned any longer with whether or not what you would like to have is going to show up. If you would like to accomplish something, you must first expect it of yourself. And my question to you is, what do you expect of yourself? Do you expect to be able to perform miracles, to attract into your life the kind of prosperity that you are entitled to? Do you expect that you can manifest the kind of relationships that you would like? In order to be able to have these kinds of expectations for yourself, you have to make a dramatic change, a dramatic shift. You must change what's possible for you. There's a sacred sound that lives beneath all sound. It is not loud, it is not urgent, and it is not outside of you. It is the still hum of your eternal being, a vibration so gentle, so constant, that it is often drowned out by the noise of your thinking, the clutter of your conditioning, and the hurried chase of your ego. But it is always there, waiting. Like an ancient friend who never left, just quietly sat beside you, trusting you'd one day remember to listen. This is the sound of silence. Not the absence of noise, but the presence of truth. You were not born into noise. You arrived as silence. The infant does not seek to be impressive, clever, or approved of. The infant is simply here. No story, no shame, no schedule. Just being, just presence, just soul. And it is in that state, untouched by past, unseduced by future, that the divine speaks clearest, not through thunder or spectacle, but through the quiet whisper that arises when the mind finally surrenders its grasp and the heart opens to the eternal. You have been told to seek answers. You have been taught to strive, to push, to acquire information and validation and success. But the greatest truths will not be shouted through effort. They will be revealed in stillness. Not because they are hiding, but because you are running. Running from moment to moment, from task to task, from thought to thought, from self to self. And yet, everything you are running toward is resting peacefully inside the very silence you keep avoiding. The world teaches us that silence is empty, but silence is not empty. Silence is full. It holds the totality of wisdom, the blueprint of every sacred life, the knowing that existed before language ever did. Silence is the space where your soul sings without needing to be heard. It is where your fear dissolves, not because it is solved, but because it is seen through. Silence reveals that there was never anything to solve, only illusions to let go of. We confuse activity with purpose. We confuse noise with value. And so we shout our affirmations. We obsess over fixing ourselves. We perform our spirituality like a show. But the soul is not impressed by performance. The soul does not clap when you look awakened. It only smiles when you are. An awakening is not a performance. It is a return, a homecoming to that original silence where you are not this role, not this pain, not even this name. You are awareness itself. In silence, you stop being a person with problems. You become a presence with power. Because the problems only exist in the theater of mind, and silence turns off the projector. Suddenly you realize the struggle was never out there. It was the noise you allowed in here. It was the commentary, the resistance, the narrative. And when the narrative pauses, so does the suffering. Not because the world changed, but because you stopped believing your thoughts were the world. When you begin to rest in silence, not as an escape, but as a return, you realize something extraordinary. That all your searching was holy, but unnecessary. You never had to become enough. You already were. You never had to find peace. You just had to stop fighting yourself long enough to feel it. You never had to be saved. Only reminded. We live in a society that glorifies answers but fears stillness. But stillness is the answer. Not a word, not a doctrine, not a formula, but a state of being. Stillness is the meeting point between you and God, where no translation is needed. No achievements, no apologies, no explanations, just presence, just truth, just you, stripped of all the noise you thought you needed to be loved. You may have believed that healing requires struggle, but healing is what happens when struggle ceases. Healing begins not when you try harder, but when you surrender deeper.
It begins when you finally sit, not with an agenda, but with reverence. When you stop performing your pain and begin witnessing it. When you stop asking, how do I fix this? And begin asking, who is aware of this? Because in that question, something shifts. The pain becomes a cloud and you, the sky. Silence reminds you that you are not the storm. You are the space in which the storm appears. The emotions will rise and fall. The thoughts will dance and disappear. The stories will come and go. But who you are does not move. Who you are is not a wave. It is the ocean. And the ocean is never afraid of its waves. There is a divine intelligence that lives in you, not outside you, not above you, not later, but now. It does not speak in language, but in presence. It does not need convincing, it already knows. It is the voice that says, you are held, even when your mind says you are falling. It is the pulse that reminds you in every breath that you are enough simply because you are. And the more you listen, the less you chase. The more you feel it, the less you need. You do not need to yell at the universe to be heard. You only need to be quiet enough to hear it whisper back. It has always been whispering, but not into your ears, into your awareness. Not into your intellect, into your being. And the only thing that ever blocked the message was the belief that it should come in a different form. The mind says, give me proof. But the soul says, just feel. And when you stop needing your healing to look dramatic and instead let it feel sacred, you will know the answer was never far. It was right here. Underneath the noise, beneath the drama, beneath the grasping, the answer you seek is in silence. Because in silence, you become what you seek. You do not find peace. You remember that you are peace. And if you are brave enough to sit in that silence without your mask, without your resume, without your wounds, something astonishing begins to happen. The false self begins to fade. The roles begin to melt. The seeking begins to slow. And in the space that's left, a presence arises. Gentle, quiet, but unmistakable. It does not demand attention because it already has your love. It does not try to impress you because it is you. There is a rhythm to life that you cannot hear when you are shouting, but when you become quiet enough, the rhythm returns. It's the rhythm of breath, of grace, of nature. The rhythm of a heart that knows it is connected to something infinite. And in that rhythm, you do not have to force clarity. You do not have to demand purpose. You simply return to what you've always been aware, alive, whole. And the irony is, the more you silence the mind, the louder your soul becomes. Not in volume, but in truth. Not in noise, but in knowing. You become fluent in the language of the present. You begin to see God not as a distant judge, but as the quiet space between your thoughts. You begin to live less from story, more from stillness. Less from effort, more from essence. Let the world keep chasing noise. Let others fill their days with more opinions, more distractions, more labels. You return to the sacred. You return to the place where truth does not have to be explained, only felt. Where your worth is not earned, only remembered. Where your next step does not need to be mapped, only trusted. This is the gift of silence. It doesn't teach you what to think. It teaches you how to listen. And when you listen, truly listen, you hear something profound. Not a new instruction, not a divine commandment, but a remembering. A remembering of what you are beneath the personality. A remembering of the vast, limitless being who has always been whole. A remembering that life is not trying to test you, it's trying to reveal you. So stop waiting for the thunder. Stop demanding that the universe speak in your language. Learn to feel the message in the silence. And you'll realize you were never disconnected. You were just distracted. You were never the noise. You only believed in it. You only learn to identify with it the rushing thoughts, the echoing doubts, the applause and the criticism, the voices that told you who to be, how to perform, what to suppress, and what to fear. But underneath it all, you were the one who heard the noise, not the noise itself. And that which hears the noise is not disturbed by it. That is your essence. And it has never once left you. Silence is not something you create. It is what remains when all the clutter is released. It is what remains when you stop trying to control how you appear and instead allow yourself to be what you are. Silence is the space between judgment and acceptance, between fear and surrender, between the false identity and the true self. In silence, the veil lifts, not with effort, but with grace. And you see clearly not with the eyes, but with the soul. There is a sacred difference between reacting and responding. Reaction is the product of noise, of unconscious habit and conditioned emotion. Response is the fruit of silence. A person who lives in silence does not react from fear. They respond from love. They do not echo the world's chaos. They embody its stillness. They do not need to be loud to be powerful, because their presence speaks louder than any words ever could. The spiritual masters of this world, the ones who radiate peace, they are not empty of emotion. They are empty of illusion. They have stopped identifying with the noise in their head and started listening to the wisdom of the still place within. They are not above suffering. They are simply not ruled by it. They have made a home in the silence. And from that home, they bring light wherever they go. You have the same light. It is not lesser. It is not distant. It only asks that you slow down long enough to see it flickering beneath the rubble. There is a divine intelligence behind all of creation. The tree does not rush its growth. The sun does not force its rise. The river does not panic when the rocks appear. Nature moves in harmony because it does not resist its own unfolding. But we as humans have forgotten how to trust. We interrupt our own peace with mental commentary. We mistake urgency for importance. We judge ourselves by how fast we can move rather than how deeply we can listen. But when you return to silence, you return to nature, you return to the rhythm of the soul, which is slow, soft, eternal. You begin to trust again, not in outcomes, but in alignment. Not in control, but in connection. You realize that life is not a puzzle to be solved, but a presence to be felt. And the deeper you go into that presence, the less you need from the outside. Because wholeness is no longer an achievement, it's your starting point. You are not incomplete. You are not a mistake. You are not lost. You are a wave that forgot it belonged to the ocean. And silence is the place where the wave remembers. You do not need more effort, you need more surrender. You do not need to fix your life, you need to witness it without judgment. The ego will tell you to strive. The soul will ask you to rest. Because in resting, you come home. Let it be okay not to have an answer. Let it be okay to sit with the question. Let it be okay to drop the mask you've worn for so long that you forgot what your face looked like. You do not need to impress the divine. You are the divine. And God is not keeping score. God is waiting in the silence, not to evaluate you, but to embrace you. There is no punishment in stillness, only revelation. You will not lose anything real by going silent. You will only lose the noise that was pretending to be real. You will only lose the false self, the one who needed to prove, to earn, to defend, to shout. The real self has no need for any of that. The real self is already whole, already enough, already divine, and it lives always in the silence. Listen not with your ears, but with your being. Listen to the spaces between the words. Listen to the breath between the thoughts. Listen to the presence behind the moment. This is where God lives. This is where truth lives. This is where you live when you finally stop trying to be someone and remember how to simply be. You have been seeking peace as if it were somewhere else. But peace is not a location. It is a return to your natural frequency. And you cannot return by running, only by stopping, only by letting go, only by releasing the belief that peace must be earned or that truth must be proven. Peace is not proven, it is felt. And it is felt in the moment when you become quiet enough to notice what has always been here. The past has a voice, the future has a voice, but neither voice belongs to now. And now is where your power lives. Now is where the soul breathes. Now is where healing happens. You do not heal by understanding the past. You heal by letting go of the need to drag it into the present. You do not awaken by fearing the future. You awaken by realizing that the present moment is eternal and nothing truly sacred can be missed from it. In silence, there is no comparison. There is no competition. There is no one to be better than, no one to be beneath. In silence, there is no role to play. There is only love, only presence, only truth. It is in silence that you remember the unshakable truth. You were never broken. You were simply buried under ideas that never belonged to you. The answer you seek is not louder than your pain. It is softer than your thoughts. It is not above you or beyond you. It is within you, waiting for you to stop pushing and start allowing. To stop asking what's next and start asking what's now, because what's now is where the divine is dancing. What's now is where the sacred breath of life is still singing you into existence. And it sings the same song to all of us. Be still. You are already home. You do not need more knowledge. You need less noise. The noise is not just in your environment, it's in your head. It's the static of a mind conditioned to fear stillness, to equate being with doing, and to see rest as laziness rather than reverence. But when you are silent, you begin to unlearn the false truths you were taught. You realize that everything you were chasing was born of the belief that you were not already whole. And that belief, not your circumstances, was the source of your suffering. The mind is loud because it is unsure. The soul is silent because it is certain. Certainty does not shout. Truth does not need volume. Real wisdom arrives like the sunrise, not with fanfare, but with radiance. It does not beg to be noticed. It simply illuminates. And silence is the place where this illumination becomes visible. Not outside you, within you. You have confused silence with absence. But silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of space. The space in which sound arises, dances, and dissolves. Just as you are not your thoughts, but the space in which thoughts appear. Just as you are not your body, but the awareness that watches the body age while the spirit remains ageless, you are the one who sees, the one who knows, the one who simply is. And this one, this infinite presence cannot be harmed, cannot be diminished, cannot be lost. It can only be forgotten in noise. Let the silence teach you. Let it teach you that your wounds are not who you are, that your worth was never up for negotiation, that you do not need to climb a ladder to touch God, you only need to sit down and listen. The higher self does not live in the clouds, it lives in the breath, in the pause. In the moment you stop trying to be and simply become aware that you already are, every moment spent in silence is a homecoming, a return from exile, a reunion with the source that never left you, only waited patiently for you to remove the walls. You thought life abandoned you, but it didn't. You just forgot how to hear it. You mistook the silence for punishment when it was actually an invitation. An invitation to stop, to breathe, to feel the divine frequency beneath the chaos. There is a holiness in quiet moments that the ego cannot comprehend, because the ego thrives on noise. It defines itself by conflict, by identity, by motion. The ego says, be more, do more, prove more. But the soul whispers, you are. That's it. You are. Not what they said, not what you did, not what you feared. Just you are. That is the beginning of freedom. Not a transformation into something else, but a return to what has always been. When you learn to be still, you become intimate with the divine. Not through belief, but through being. You don't need a new belief system. You need an undisturbed moment with your own presence. That is where you meet God, not through dogma, but through awareness. Not through rituals alone, but through the reverence of attention. There is no temple more sacred than the present moment. No scripture more direct than your breath. You are not behind. You are not too late. You have not failed. These are stories written by the mind that does not yet trust the unfolding of life. But the soul has no calendar. It only has now. And in the now, there is no judgment, only clarity. There is no guilt, only understanding. There is no shame, only compassion. The silence knows this. It is not against you. It is holding you. Softly, constantly, waiting only for you to become still enough to feel it. There are seasons in your life when words will not be enough, when advice will ring hollow, when the mind, no matter how brilliant, cannot lead you home. In these seasons, silence becomes your teacher. A teacher that says nothing, yet shows you everything. A teacher that gives no answers, yet dissolves every false question. A teacher that does not fix you because you were never broken, only buried beneath noise. If you could only sit in silence long enough, you would begin to feel the edges of your identity melt. The roles you've played, the expectations you've carried, the wounds you've named yourself after all, begin to fall away. And what is left is not a void, it is not emptiness, it is fullness. The fullness of being. The stillness that speaks louder than any accomplishment ever could. This silence is not passive. It is not weak. It is the most powerful force in the universe. It creates worlds. It births stars. It transmutes pain. It dissolves fear. It reminds you of your eternal nature. And when you align with it, you stop trying to win at life. You start dancing with it. You stop trying to survive. You stop trying to protect yourself from the moment, and instead you surrender to its intelligence. The greatest truth is this. The answer is not hidden. The answer is not far. The answer is not complicated. The answer is within. It is not a formula. It is a frequency. And that frequency cannot be understood through analysis. It can only be felt through presence. The answer is not a thing to be found. It is a state to be remembered. And silence is the gateway to that remembrance. You were not sent here to perform. You were not sent here to accumulate titles. You were sent here to remember the truth of what you are. You were sent here to learn how to be not someone, but presence itself. You were sent here to know yourself, not as the identity, but as the observer of all identities. And once you know yourself in that way, you are free. Not because the world changed, but because your awareness did. Let the noise fall away. Let the urgency dissolve. Let the chasing end. Let yourself land here, now, in the sacred simplicity of silence, where nothing needs to happen for everything to be complete, where you are not becoming, you are being, where you are not achieving, you are allowing, where you are not demanding from life, you are receiving its grace. And when you emerge from silence, you do not return the same. You return lighter, clearer, more loving. Not because you gained anything, but because you remembered everything. The fog lifts, the heart opens, the mind relaxes, and the soul rejoices because you came back. You came back to yourself. And in doing so, you came back to life. The more you live in silence, the more you become aware of a deeper guidance that was never missing, only muffled. You begin to feel your intuition not as a rare occurrence, but as your native language. You begin to notice synchronicity, where once you saw coincidence. You begin to trust your own path. Not because it is guaranteed, but because it is sacred. And that trust, born of silence, becomes your anchor in a world addicted to noise. No longer do you need to chase what others chase. No longer do you need to explain what cannot be explained. You begin to live gently, yet powerfully. You begin to embody presence, not as an effort, but as your essence. You walk slower, you speak less, you listen more. You watch your own mind with compassion, and you watch others through the eyes of understanding, not judgment. This is the gift of silence. It changes how you see, not what you see. The world remains the same, yet you are different. And in that difference, everything is transformed. You begin to feel beauty in the ordinary. You begin to appreciate what you once overlooked. You see divinity not only in sunsets and temples, but in traffic lights and wrinkles, in the silence between two people who no longer need words to know they are loved. The answer you seek has never been outside your reach, but it has always been outside your noise. And now that the noise is quiet, you can see clearly again. You can feel again. You can breathe in life, not as a means to an end, but as the end itself. Each breath is a prayer. Each moment is a temple. Each act of presence is an offering. And you are the altar. Even your pain becomes different in silence. Not because it disappears, but because it loses its grip. It no longer defines you, it teaches you. It no longer owns you, it flows through you. You begin to see that even your suffering was part of the return. That even the loudest seasons of your life were nudging you back toward quiet. That your heartbreak was not a punishment, but a portal. A sacred crack through which the light could reach you again. The ego resists this truth. It wants things to be more complex, more dramatic. It wants a formula, a story, a reason to cling to its identity. But the soul only wants freedom. And freedom does not need noise. It needs awareness. It needs trust. It needs surrender. Not surrender as defeat, surrender as alignment, surrender as the courage to release what was never yours to carry. When you touch silence deeply, you realize that the self you've been defending was never who you were, that all your walls were made of thought, that all your masks were inherited roles. And in that realization, a soft peace arises, not the peace of the world, but the peace of the soul, a peace that does not depend on circumstances because it was never created by them. You no longer wait for life to be perfect before you feel peace. You bring peace to life as it is. You no longer pray for change from desperation. You pray from gratitude, knowing that even without a single external shift, you are already held, already loved, already home. And from this home, everything becomes possible. The stillness becomes your compass, not because it gives you all the answers, but because it connects you to the source that doesn't need them. You move not with urgency, but with clarity. Not with panic, but with power. Not with fear, but with faith. The world may still pull at you, but you are no longer pulled apart. You return to silence like a river returns to the ocean, effortlessly, without question, because it knows where it belongs. And from that place, your very presence becomes a gift to others. You speak less, but your words carry weight. You advise less, but your energy heals. You convince no one, yet your being inspires. Because in a world that shouts, your silence becomes magnetic. In a world that performs, your authenticity becomes medicine. You no longer need to prove anything. You no longer need to earn anyone's respect. You no longer need to pretend, because silence has stripped you down to what is real. And what is real does not need to be explained. It only needs to be lived. And so you begin to live not as a seeker of answers, but as a bearer of presence. Not as someone trying to find their worth, but as someone who finally remembered they never lost it. You are not your history. You are not your habits. You are not even your name. You are the awareness that sees all of it, the consciousness behind the curtain. You are the witness, the still point, the unshakable essence that watches the waves come and go without becoming them. And the more you reside in that space, the more life opens up without force, because life recognizes itself in you. And where recognition flows, miracles do too. This is not philosophy, it is remembrance. This is not theory, it is truth, felt directly when all the distractions fall away. And what remains is not a lesser version of you, it is the real you, the radiant you, the you who never needed fixing, only uncovering, the you who has been silently waiting for you to stop running, to stop pretending, to stop performing, and just be. So sit in silence today. Not to achieve anything, but to release everything. Not to become spiritual, but to remember you already are. Let the silence cleanse you. Let it dissolve your tension. Let it hold your fear without needing to resolve it. Let it remind you that you were never abandoned, only invited. And now, finally, you've accepted. There will still be noise in the world, but you do not have to let it live in you. There will still be moments of doubt, of fear, of noise rising again, but that is okay, because now you know the way back. Now you have tasted what is real. And once you have tasted it, you cannot forget it. You can only return again and again to the place that never left. The answer you seek is in silence. And in that silence, you will not just find the answer, you will find yourself. And in finding yourself, you will discover you were the answer all along.
There comes a moment in every life when we must decide whether we will be a servant to what was or a creator of what is. A moment when the soul whispers softly, patiently, it's not the past that binds you. It's what you continue to think about it. The past is over, but your thoughts are alive. They are the architects of your present, the paintbrush in your hand, the weather in your sky. You are not a victim of what happened unless you keep repeating it with your mind. You were never meant to live in reverse. And yet, how many lives are lived as echoes? How many hearts beat not for today, but in rhythm with some yesterday that refuses to loosen its grip? But let me ask you something. Who is holding whom? Is the past holding you, or are you holding the past? You see, the ego loves to rewind. It finds safety in stories. It finds identity in wounds. It says, look what they did. Look how I suffered. Look what I lost. And in this theater of repetition, the ego builds its stage, dramatic, tragic, noble in its pain. But the soul does not live there. The soul lives now. It breathes in the eternal present. It sings not of what was, but of what is becoming. You are not your history. You are not your trauma. You are not the chapter that hurt the most. You are not the character the world tried to write for you. You are not even the pain that felt so real, so permanent, so defining. You are the awareness that can choose right here, right now, a different thought. And that one thought, that one single shift in perception can break a lifetime of illusion. The past is not the cause. Your thoughts are, you say, but you don't know what happened to me. And you're right, I don't. But what I do know is that every single thing that happened. It had its time, it had its shape, it had its impact. But what gives it life now, what makes it breathe again, what makes it feel real again is your decision to relive it in your mind. What would happen if you stopped? What would happen if you declared not with bitterness, not with denial, but with absolute clarity that no longer defines me? I am not what I survived, I am what I choose now. You would begin to experience freedom, not the kind you shout about, not the kind you post about, but the quiet, sacred kind, the kind that shows up in your nervous system, in your breath, in your relationships, in the way you look at the sunrise and realize you're no longer imprisoned by a memory. Let us go deeper. Imagine you are walking through a vast forest And with each step you carry a stone. Each stone represents a story, a heartbreak, a betrayal, a failure. You carry them because someone told you they were yours. You carry them because you think you must, because to drop them would be to forget, and forgetting you fear would mean the pain had no meaning. But here's the paradox. The pain only has meaning if it wakes you up, not if it chains you down. You can place the stones down now, not in bitterness, not in anger, but in reverence, in understanding, in truth, because the stones were never the problem. It was the decision to keep carrying them. Healing is not about rewriting the past. It's about releasing the belief that the past is the author of your now. There is a difference between remembrance and attachment. One honors the journey, the other prolongs the suffering. And you must ask yourself again and again with courage, am I remembering to grow or am I remembering to bleed? You are not here to bleed forever. You are here to rise. And so I ask you, what thought are you thinking right now? Is it liberating you or is it recreating your pain? Is it healing your nervous system or is it replaying an old film you already know the ending to? The mind will tell you, this is just the way I am. I've always been this way. But that is not the voice of your spirit. That is the voice of conditioning. That is the voice of the world trying to speak through your internal radio. You are not the voice. You are the one who hears it. And in that awareness, that profound spiritual awareness, you become free. Because now you can choose. Not react, not replay, not defend, but choose. Choose again. Choose peace instead of control. Choose compassion instead of narrative. Choose now instead of then. Choose love even when the mind says it's safer to hate. It is not your past that is choosing. It is you. And you are not your past. You are presence. You are the unconditioned, unrepeatable, unshakable expression of the divine. And the divine does not dwell in wounds. The divine dwells in awakening. You say, but how do I let go? And I say, you don't have to force it. Letting go is not something you do, it's something you allow. You stop rehearsing the story. You stop feeding it with your attention. You stop bowing to the memory as if it were your master. You become aware, you observe. And slowly, quietly, like clouds drifting away from the sun, the pain begins to lift. You were never broken, only buried. Buried under belief, buried under story, buried under thoughts. You inherited from a world asleep to its own light. But you are waking up. You are the light noticing itself. Let the past rest, not because it doesn't matter, but because you do. You matter. Your peace matters. Your joy matters. And you cannot drink from the river of life while holding a cup filled with yesterday's poison. Pour it out, not in anger, in gratitude, because even your pain was a teacher. Even your darkness showed you something. Even your wounds whispered truths. But now it's time to graduate, to step forward, to remember who you really are. A spiritual being, having a temporary experience, not defined by the story, but illuminated by the presence that watches it. You are that presence. And the moment you return to that truth, not just as an idea, but as a lived experience, the chains fall. The past stops chasing you because you stop running. There is no healing without awareness, and there is no awareness while clinging to blame. You are free to choose again. You are free to say, that may have happened, but it no longer defines how I love, how I live, how I see myself. You are free to tell a new story, not one of survival, but one of remembrance, remembering your eternal nature, your divine origin, your infinite worth. You are the sky, not the storm. You are the witness, not the wound. You are the soul, not the script. Let the mind scream if it must. Let it throw its tantrum, but do not give it the keys to your kingdom. Breathe. Feel that? That's the sound of you returning to yourself. Not the small self, the name, the age, the roles, but the big self, the silent presence behind the curtain of form, the stillness that cannot be shaken, the love that has no opposite. This self has no past. It only is. And when you live from this space, the world no longer tells you who you are. You begin to tell the world, not in arrogance, but in certainty, not in pride, but in peace. Because now you remember, the past is not the cause. Your thoughts are, and you are the thinker. You are the chooser. You are the I am behind the storm. And the moment you awaken to that is the moment you are born again. Now breathe again, gently, slowly. Let every exhale carry away a thought that no longer serves. Let every inhale welcome in the peace that was waiting beneath the noise. You are not here to repeat, you are here to remember. And what you remember becomes your freedom. Let it be so. And so we return again, not to the past, but to the present, the only place you have ever truly lived. Every second you spend regretting yesterday is a second you've stolen from the miracle of now. And the now does not ask you to be better than you were. It only asks you to be fully, without judgment, without resistance, without story. What is this moment if not a blank canvas awaiting the brush of your awareness? What is your breath if not the wind of God moving through your body, reminding you that you are still here, still capable of healing, still more than what they said, still more than what you believed? There is no expiration date on awakening. You can choose this moment, yes, this one, to stop arguing for your limitations and instead declare with grace, I am not a reflection of my pain. I am the presence in which even pain dissolves. This is not a denial of what has happened. This is an embrace of what is eternal. And what is eternal? Love, stillness, the I am. The world may point to your scars and say, that's who you are. But you can look within and say, that was my lesson, not my identity. Pain is not who you are. Pain is a messenger. And once the message has been received, the messenger can go. You don't need to rehearse the wound to prove it was real. You don't need to retell the story to validate your worth. The universe already knows you're enough. Let that sink in for a moment, deeper than your intellect, deeper than your beliefs. Let it land in your cells. You are already enough. Not once you heal, not once you succeed, not once you make sense of the past, but right here, as you are. Because your value was never dependent on what happened to you, but on what lives within you. And what lives within you is the divine itself, infinite, unchanging, whole. You are not an accident. You are not a mistake. You are not a broken branch on the tree of life. You are life itself, expressing, discovering, remembering. You don't need fixing. You need remembering. Remembering that behind every thought is the thinker. Behind every emotion is the observer. Behind every identity is the eternal. When you remember this, resentment begins to fade. Not because what happened was right, but because it no longer holds authority over you. Forgiveness is not weakness. Forgiveness is power. It is not about letting them off the hook. It's about releasing yourself from the hook. When you carry anger, you carry them with you. When you hold blame, you hold the pain. And the moment you let go, not from superiority, but from clarity, you say, I choose peace instead. I choose to be free. That is not passive. That is spiritual maturity. Anyone can relive the wound, but it takes a soul awakened to say, this stops with me. You are that soul. You are that awakening. You are not here to suffer for the sake of a story. You are here to rise as a demonstration of what becomes possible when we live from spirit, not from script. Can you feel it? That quiet strength, it doesn't scream, it simply is. It doesn't compete, it doesn't compare, it doesn't defend. It knows this is the space you return to when you stop listening to the world and start listening to the whisper of your own soul. That whisper that says, I am light, I am here, I am not what was done to me, I am what I allow myself to become. This is not self-help, this is self-realization. The deepest kind of help you can ever receive is to remember that the self you thought was broken was never broken at all. It was merely covered in clouds. And clouds are not permanent. They pass, just like thoughts, just like emotions, just like identities. But you, the one who observes them all, you remain still, vast, untouched. And in this stillness, you begin to notice something sacred. Your thoughts create your life, not your circumstances, not your childhood, not even your pain, but the thoughts you choose or the thoughts you allow day after day. Thoughts are not just passing winds. They are builders. They shape your posture, your choices, your energy, your future. So ask yourself now, what am I thinking? And is that thought serving the version of me I'm becoming? Because each thought either liberates or limits. Each thought either aligns or resists. Each thought either opens the heart or armors it. Choose your thoughts like you would choose a prayer, deliberately, reverently, lovingly. If a thought does not carry the fragrance of peace, it is not of your highest self. If a thought requires that you relive pain, control others, or defend your worth, it is not coming from love. You are not obligated to entertain every voice in your head. You are free to change the station. You are free to upgrade the story. The moment you see this, truly see this, is the moment you become the conscious author of your life. No longer reacting, no longer reliving, but creating. You were not born to be an echo. You were born to be a note in the divine symphony, original, whole, and irreplaceable. Stop handing your present to your past. Stop letting your history speak louder than your heart. Stop asking for permission from the old you, the version built in defense, built in fear, built in reaction. That version got you here. Honor it, but do not worship it. Because now you are being invited to step into something higher, something truer, something freer. You are being asked by life itself to live from the awareness that the past is not the cause. Your thoughts are, and who chooses your thoughts? You do. Not your parents, not your partner, not your past, not your pain. You. So choose again. Choose with love. Choose with presence. Choose with the knowing that you are not broken, you are blooming. Right here, right now. The petals may not have fully opened yet. That's okay. Healing is not a race. Awakening is not a competition. There is no finish line in eternity. There is only this moment and the truth it contains. And the truth is simple. You are already home. You were never exiled, only distracted. Distracted by thought, by fear, by the echo of old stories. But now, the stories grow quiet. Now, the storm loses interest. Now, the soul speaks louder than the noise. And what does it say? I am. That is the beginning and the end. There is no greater mantra. There is no more powerful identity. I am. Everything else is decoration. So choose the decorations that honor the temple. Choose the thoughts that reflect your divinity. Choose the words that bring healing, not harm. Choose the vision that serves love, not fear. And when you fall, as we all do, fall gently, fall mindfully, and remember that even in your falling, you are being held. by grace, by spirit, by the infinite intelligence that birthed galaxies and still had the precision to breathe life into you. You are not small. You are not powerless. You are not defined by yesterday. You are the awareness that can create heaven in this moment through the thought you think next. So, what will you choose? The past? Or the present? The pain? Or the peace? The repetition? Or the rebirth? This is your moment. This is your turning point. This is the chapter where the character looks up and remembers, I am not the wound. I am the healer. Let this be that moment. Let this be the breath where the old self dissolves and the eternal self shines through, radiant, unafraid, limitless. And so it is. Every moment you choose to return to your breath instead of your past, you reclaim your life. Every time you notice a thought trying to pull you back into an old identity and gently say, no thank you, I am choosing something higher now, you create a new world inside of you. You are not waiting for a new life. You are creating it one thought, one breath, one quiet act of awareness at a time. You don't need to fix the past. You only need to stop assigning it the role of master. The master is always your awareness, never the memory. The master is your capacity to stop in the middle of the storm and ask, who is watching all of this? And the answer comes not in words, but in silence. I am. This is the real healing, not rearranging the furniture of your past, but remembering you were never the furniture. You were the room. You were the space it all happened in. And space is never harmed by the things it contains. You are that space, vast, sacred, infinite. When you begin to live from that space, you stop blaming, you stop clinging, and you stop defending what no longer serves your evolution. The ego will fight for the past. It always does. Because the past gives the ego its job, its identity, its story, its sense of specialness. The ego is fed by pain. It collects grievances like trophies and wears suffering like a badge. But the soul is not impressed by suffering. The soul does not identify with how much you've endured. The soul is only interested in how much you've awakened. And awakening only happens when you stop looking back to justify where you are. You don't need justification, you need presence. You need the courage to say, what I think now matters more than what they did then. That one sentence can change your life if you allow it, because your power was never taken. It was only postponed, waiting for the moment you remembered. I get to choose what I think. I get to choose what I feel. I get to choose who I become. And so many carry the weight of invisible chains, assumptions, conclusions, decisions made at age 6, age 16, age 30, frozen in time, still ruling the present moment. But all of that can be released not through force, but through seeing. Seeing that a belief is just a thought you've kept thinking, and freedom is just a choice you keep choosing. There are no locked doors in your mind, only doors you haven't tried to open lately. What thought have you given authority that no longer deserves it? What belief do you keep kneeling before that keeps you smaller than your soul? There is no spiritual prize for holding on to what hurts. There is only delay. Delay of joy, delay of lightness, delay of expansion. But the moment you let it go, truly let it go, the room floods with clarity, the body relaxes, the future feels different, not because the world changed, but because your mind did. And it's always been your mind. Your thoughts about them. Your thoughts about you. Your thoughts about what is and what could be. And just like that, the entire narrative can change. Because you changed your lens. Because you stopped editing the movie of your life with a script written in fear. Now you are writing with love. Now you are choosing on purpose. Now you are becoming, instead of repeating, and this is not about perfection, it's about presence, it's about intention. It's about waking up in the middle of your day and saying, I am here, I am alive, I am no longer sleeping inside the armor of the past. Because that armor, it kept you safe, but it also kept you numb. It protected you, but it also prevented you. And now you are brave enough to take it off. You don't need to wear pain as proof anymore. You don't need to carry guilt as evidence. You don't need to replay scenes just to feel in control. Real control comes from surrender. Real strength comes from softness. Real freedom comes from the willingness to feel everything and still choose love. And yes, love is a choice. It is not a reward. It is not something you wait to feel. It is something you bring even into the mess, even into the memory, even into the moment that once broke you, because you are not here to stay broken. You are here to shine. You are here to radiate. You are here to remember that your soul is made of light, not scars. The scars were never the end of the story. They were the part where the story turns, where you stop running, where you stop identifying as the wound, and instead become the medicine. You are the medicine. Your presence, your awareness, your stillness, your ability to sit in silence and see clearly, that is the healing the world needs. And you begin by offering it to yourself. Offer yourself truth. Offer yourself forgiveness. Offer yourself the grace to let go, not because you're weak, but because you're ready to be free. Let others carry their own stories. You don't have to fix them. You don't have to convince them. You don't have to suffer to be understood. You only have to be true to your own healing. Because the moment you stop justifying your pain and start honoring your light, the entire universe rearranges itself in support. You start meeting people who mirror your new beliefs. You start walking through doors that only open to your new vibration. You start seeing your life not as something happening to you, but something blooming from you. And that is the miracle. That is the rebirth. Not a change in what the world gives you, but a change in what you bring to the world. And it all begins with one shift. The past is not the cause. Your thoughts are, so let your thoughts become your sanctuary. Let them be clean. Let them be sacred. Let them be soft like prayer, strong like sunlight, quiet like truth. Speak to yourself like someone you love. Think of yourself like someone worth knowing. Honor yourself like someone sent here for a divine reason, because you were. And you are not behind. You are not broken. You are not forgotten. You are remembering. You are awakening. You are returning to a self that never left, only waited patiently beneath the noise, the fear, the identity, waited for you to be still long enough to hear the truth whisper back. You were always the one you were waiting for. And that is where your real life begins. You are not late to your own life. The timeline you thought you missed was never real. The milestones they taught you to chase were never yours. The only true moment is this one, and you have arrived in it whole. You don't need more time. You need more truth. And the truth is you can stop searching for what you already are. You are peace. You are joy. You are the infinite light looking out through finite eyes. You are not here to prove your worth. You are here to express it. And expression has no need for justification. You don't need to justify why you let go. You don't need to explain why you stopped hurting yourself with memories. You don't owe anyone a reason for your healing. Your peace is reason enough. The mind may still wander, yes. It may knock on the doors of old houses and try to move back in, but you are the landlord of your awareness now. You decide what thoughts get to stay. You decide what thoughts feed your spirit. You decide what gets your energy. And the most sacred use of your energy is not in managing your past. It's in living your present. So few truly live. They exist, they maintain, they perform, but they do not live To live is to risk being seen, not as a version crafted to be accepted, but as a soul willing to be real. To live is to laugh when nothing makes sense. To live is to cry. When the moment breaks, you open. To live is to walk into each sunrise saying, "Today I choose again. Today I remember that nothing behind me has the power to define me." And that is how you begin to create your life, not from defense, not from trauma, but from design, divine design, inspired thought, intentional living. You begin to speak differently with less urgency, more sincerity. You begin to move differently, not chasing, but flowing. You begin to think differently, from fear to faith, from worry to wonder, from resentment to reverence. And this shift, this sacred shift, begins within. It always begins within, because the outer world is only ever a mirror. If you carry stories of unworthiness, the world will echo it. If you carry beliefs of limitation, the world will reflect it. But if you carry the vibration of truth, that you are the thinker of your thoughts, the chooser of your path, the presence behind the story, then the world bends. Not because it changes, but because your perception is no longer clouded by illusion. And that's the real miracle. Not changing what's out there, but realizing what was never in the way. The obstacle was never the pain. It was the meaning you gave to it. The obstacle was never the past. It was your loyalty to it. And when you finally lay down that loyalty, not in bitterness, not in blame, but in clarity, something holy happens. Your soul breathes, not the shallow breath of survival, but the deep, steady breath of remembrance. This is who I am, not what they said, not what happened, not what I failed to become, but who I've always been underneath the noise, behind the thought, beyond the name. I am, and this I am is not in conflict. It is not bound by shame. It does not need permission. It simply is. And that isness, that unshakable, eternal presence, is the true foundation of freedom. Not freedom from life, but freedom in life. Freedom in choosing a new thought, a new pattern, a new possibility. You can begin again, not by forgetting, but by no longer being defined by remembering. The past will still visit sometimes. That's okay. Let it pass like weather. Let it knock and keep walking. Let it rise and fall like every wave that has ever kissed the shore and disappeared back into the sea. You are not here to hold every wave. You are here to become the ocean. Vast, silent, unmoved. The past is not the cause. Your thoughts are, so choose thoughts that love you. Choose thoughts that breathe life into your body, that make your chest open instead of tighten, that remind you you are safe now, you are home now. And the most beautiful thing about this inner home is that no one can evict you from it. No trauma can foreclose it. No opinion can decorate it with doubt, because you built it. And what you build from presence cannot be destroyed by the past. So build with words of kindness. Build with thoughts of abundance. Build with a vision of your soul on fire with purpose. Build not because you are escaping what was, but because you are finally listening to what is. And what is sacred. You breathing, you forgiving, you softening, you choosing peace again and again, like a prayer, like a promise, like the rhythm of the divine whispering through your choices. This is what transformation looks like. It's not always loud. It's not always visible. Sometimes it looks like silence instead of a reaction. Sometimes it looks like walking away without explaining yourself. Sometimes it looks like smiling for no reason other than the fact that you no longer live inside a prison of your own creation. And sometimes it looks like this moment, this very one where you're still and something within you knows, I'm not going back, I'm not repeating, I'm not thinking that thought again. Because that thought doesn't belong to the real me. The real me is light. The real me is free. The real me is here. No longer a servant to memory, no longer a hostage to emotion, no longer a believer in inherited limitations, but here, awake, alive, surrendered, and in that surrender, you become unstoppable. Not in the way the world teaches, not with force or domination or conquest, but with peace, with presence, with the gentle, unshakable power of someone who no longer identifies with suffering. You will walk differently. You will speak with less noise and more meaning. You will love with fewer conditions. You will create from inspiration, not obligation. And your life will begin to mirror the shift that happened within. Not the moment you got revenge or closure or understanding, but the moment you stopped asking the past to give you anything and started offering the present everything. That is when life opens. That is when you stop existing and start living. That is when you remember the past is not the cause. Your thoughts are. And you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. You are the sky they float through. You are the soul remembering its own light. And this light, your light, needs no apology. Let it shine. Let it soften. Let it guide you not back to what was, but forward to what always was and what always will be. The you that is free. The you that is whole. The you that was never lost, only ready to be seen. Welcome home. You've arrived. You are here. You are enough. You are free. And so it is.